the Homeschool How-To. I'm Cheryl, and I left the life of classrooms and cubicles for home educating in the countryside. But I have no idea how to homeschool, so I interview the people who do. Join me on my quest to learn all the ways there is to homeschool. Welcome to this week's episode of the Homeschool How-To. With me this week, I have a very special guest for Father's Day, my husband, Chris. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we've been trying to do this for a little while, and I'm surprised that you actually came on. You did it with minimal complaining, so thank you for that. But I kind of wanted to talk to you about what kids should know, because you're in the trades, and you've been in the trades. You just had your 20-year anniversary with the company that you work for, so congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So for Father's Day. Now, first of all, I didn't get you anything because I just left my job to homeschool our children. So I don't have any money. But if there's something that you would like to buy yourself, please feel free. Feel free to use that money on something nice.
Very generous of you.
Okay, so when you met me, we are coming up on 11 years now of knowing each other, and we just had our 7-year wedding anniversary. When you first met me, and I was voting for Hillary Clinton and probably backing Bernie Sanders and stuff, did you ever think that down the line I would be leaving my state job, homeschooling our kids, having chickens in the backyard, getting raw milk from a farm illegally, and making sourdough bread?
No. I didn't even think that we were going to last that long if it continued down that road.
But we were married, like when I had my transition from. There's lots of people transitioning today. However, my transition more took place as like the liberal to the conservative, and then over into the I don't trust any of them because, like George Carlin said, they're one big party and we ain't in it.
Yeah, but you weren't quite as overbearing on that mindset at that time.
True. And it's interesting because when we met, 11 years ago, it wasn't so polarizing to be on opposite sides, the Democrat, the Republican. It was before COVID, before Trump. So it wasn't this polarizing thing. It was like Clinton was doing his stuff with Monica, and it wasn't so like if you were in one party, you absolutely hated the other. And especially with like the global warming and all that stuff, which we'll get into because I do like your perspective on that stuff, and I think you have a good way of explaining it. So yeah, I guess lucky for me, it wasn't a polarizing time. You could handle a little bit of Democrat in your life, and eventually I turned.
You saw the light.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was. I know you did send me very early on in COVID a video about budesonide. Do you remember that? 2 doctors talking about how budesonide worked on their COVID patients, on every one of them. And I was like, oh, wow, here we go, guys. We don't have to worry. We don't have to lock down. Here's your answer. I posted on Facebook expecting everybody to be like, wow, this is wonderful news. And I got hate from it. I thought that was so weird. And I think that was the start of like, wait a minute, if you hate me for spreading logic and truth, then maybe you guys are on the wrong side.
Well, that's when you started sending me a lot of stuff. And I'd have to tell you when I got home from work that I had already sent you all that stuff, or I already told you all that stuff, but you just blocked it out. So
like a true Democrat, huh? So you are in HVAC, which it's what does that even stand for?
Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Okay, and you've been doing that for 20 years. Did you know that that's what you were going to do when you were in school? You did the public school thing. So did I.
Yeah, no, I had no clue.
So
I made it through a year and a half of college before I figured it out.
And how do you figure something like that out? Because clearly 20 years ago, there wasn't that much of an outreach for it. And I'm guessing there isn't today either.
I was doing automotive, but I did not want to do flat rate work and started questioning halfway through, my college. And a guy my father knew happened to be at the house, and I mentioned something. He said, "Hey, did you ever think about HVAC?" I said, "No, for what? What would I think about that for?" So then he started telling me what kind of money he made and what he did, and it was really what he said about how much money he made sparked my interest because it was a lot. So he told me that there was, in the building I was at for college had the program for HVAC. So I just went and talked to the guys and basically said, well, you have all the tools and seem to have the knowledge to just jump right in. So why don't you come on over? And that was it.
So, in all of your high school, nobody talked about the trades or anything like that?
No, there was VOTech classes. I never thought about it, never was involved in anything like that. I knew kids that went, and I'm sure there was some classes there, but unless I had looked into it, I never would have known it.
Yeah, I know because I went to a school maybe, I don't know, 45 minutes away from you. Votech and what they also call BOCES, the BOCES program, we had
Same
those,
thing.
but they kind of had this negative connotation to it. Like, yeah, like kind of like the kids with, I don't know, the dumb kids or something went there. That was the connotation around it. And clearly that's not the case, and I don't know how it came about that that's why we thought that was for like special education or something like that.
Yeah, the one that we could have went to, I am now in the job I'm in now. We basically went in and redid the entire facility, and I've done all the new HVAC equipment there, and I'm quite jealous that I didn't go there at this point. The kids are pretty lucky right now with what they have to work with.
Yeah. So we're homeschooling our kids. How do you think that's going?
So far, so good. I feel like I don't know where kids should be at what time, but I feel like they're both pretty smart for where they are.
Yeah. And, I do a lot of the sit down stuff. You do more of the hands on stuff with our son. He's 5, he'll be 6 soon. And I feel like he spent a lot of time in the garage with you or, different projects that you've done, putting in heating in our basement. And he's right there. How important is that? Is that stuff you did with your dad?
Yeah, yeah, my father didn't get into too much of that stuff as deep as I do, but all the projects of building decks at the house or, piping projects, if my father didn't do it, he knew somebody that did, so I would kind of pay attention to them. I always found it interesting, so, but yeah, I think it's very important. He can go out and do quite a bit of things already at 5 by himself and understand what he's doing than I feel most can.
Yeah, at like 30, right? And all right, so how important is it that the trades, knowing the trades, even plumbing your toilet, or I don't know, I have such an error, like I don't know even the half of what you do. And you do commercial HVAC, which is very different than home residential HVAC, right?
Yeah, it's same principle, but just bigger equipment and way more involved.
So, okay, if we sent our kid to school and he said, "Hey, I think I would like to get involved in HVAC." Is there even a big distinguishment, like at the high school level, to say like this is commercial, this is residential? You can have totally different jobs depending on which avenue you go down. I feel like conversations like that with teenagers would really spark their interest in the field more so than thinking of, oh, I don't want to be a plumber and plumb a toilet.
Well, I mean, even in college, when I went to college for HVAC, I didn't learn commercial because it's just a small facility. So all I learned was small residential stuff, little boilers for houses and, residential air conditioners. There was no commercial stuff. I didn't learn commercial until I got hired with a commercial company.
Oh, is that normal that colleges don't separate the two?
I don't know. I mean, because again, it's the same principles. It's just you don't see in the classroom, they can't bring the size of equipment and stuff like that into the building to teach you. So we went on a couple small field trips to see stuff, but that was it. We didn't get to really learn about it or hands-on train on it.
Well, that's a good point. Okay, so that's college. Like you're actually like paying to go to a university and you still aren't getting the hands-on training that you would if you were homeschooled and we can you could take our son to certain jobs that, it's okay to bring him on where he is getting that one-on-one look or even, hey, I know someone, my buddy does this line of work. We can bring him there to see if that's something that he'd want to do. Here you are paying to go to a college and they don't even have, the ability to show you what or teach you what commercial HVAC really entails until you're graduated and in the position. That's
Well,
pretty crazy.
yeah, think about, our son's already been to a friend's of mine's job site where he's run an excavator. He's been to a crane shop where we had to do some big rigging for a job of mine and saw that. So, yeah, it's a lot of things that if he was at school at that time, he wouldn't have been able to go.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, what are some different things that like commercial HVAC would do? Just to give people an idea. Because I mean, you say the word commercial HVAC, it really means nothing to like the layman.
We don't go to people's houses, businesses, process plants, hospitals, even down to like a local YMCA, something that's not a residential situation. I have been to residential
Jails,
houses, and
schools,
yep, a lot of schools, jails. I've been to a house. It was a house
hospitals.
that was so
Mhm.
big that it was basically a commercial size system.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So when we think about like working on, the chiller at a hospital, like if you're not there to get the chiller working, the OR isn't able to work properly, right?
Yeah, that's been an instance, where certain equipment goes down. Yeah, they have to start figuring out how they get patients out of that facility into another one safely. Some of them are in the middle of operation. They could be having, somebody could be opened up on a table, and if conditions are getting out of spec, that's risking, yeah, the patient's life. We had nursing homes that ran out of heat, and they had to try to figure out how they're going to get hundreds of, elderly people in a nursing home out of a building in extreme cold because the heat had failed and we didn't know how quickly it could get, turned back on. So it's a huge, huge thing.
Yeah, there's definitely not enough promotion around this type of work. And we're just talking about commercial HVAC here. I mean, when you get into electrical and plumbing and all the rest of the trades, I mean, it's just how much do they cross over? Like, could you walk into an electrical job and just start doing that tomorrow with the experience that you've gained in the last 20 years?
Yeah, I work on a lot of stuff that some electricians don't even work on, specialized stuff, as far as low voltage and DC voltage stuff, um, high voltage. We work on all the way up to 4160, so 4160 volts. That most, residential electrician stuff, they're just dealing with maybe, single phase 220 or something like that, which is a whole different ball game in itself. Starters and VFD drives and a lot of different equipment most people won't see.
Yeah,
We
you're
also
speaking
get
another
in,
language to me right now. So,
yeah,
all
we
right,
also get into,
go ahead.
again, there's plumbing. We have to be able to do all kinds of plumbing, solder, brazing. Almost every trade at some point is involved in HVAC.
Okay, so it's not like every trade crosses over with another trade. It's more that they all funnel somehow into HVAC.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Well, yeah. Okay, so when someone like me thinks of plumbing, I think of like your toilet clogs and you need to figure out how to unscrew the toilet and get in there and what is causing the clog. But now, as you're talking about that, plumbing could mean you've got water running through this chiller, cooling it. I mean, I'm only speaking like from what I have gathered in the last 11 years that you do. So the water is cooling things down. Now, if you have to do something, you have to actually like stop the water and drain it out safely. There might be something in it too, like a coolant or whatever that has to be done all appropriately and safely. And so that's the plumbing aspect to your job.
Yeah, so in a hospital, there's say a big chiller that's full of refrigerant, and the refrigerant cools the water that runs through that chiller, and then there's pumps and plumbing that goes through the entire building to different fan coil units that blow air across that cold water to get cooling into the space. So you've got to know how water moves, how to get it to the places at the proper flow, the proper amount, the correct amount of air that now goes across that coil, where it goes, how it gets back. You're controlling the fans, controlling the pumps. Everything has to happen at the right time, right speed.
Okay. So how important is it that we let kids know in school? Like there are so many people going to college. I mean, we were big into watching the show Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe. And he's a big advocate for pushing the trades and not necessarily going into college. I've shared blurbs of him speaking before on how nothing has become more expensive so quickly than a college degree. And everybody just taking out loans, and they're all government backed, so the loans are paid off right away with our tax dollars. So the banks paid back, the universities are all paid back. It's just us, our tax dollars aren't paid back
Mhm.
until the students pay back the loans. And if we forgive the loans or they just blow them off anyway, the only person making out poorly is the taxpayer. Now, do they even pay us back in the end? Probably not. So I guess, does it really matter? But that's for another episode. But anyway, Mike Rowe always talks about pushing more of the trades. And how important is it that we do that? Like, are you seeing from when you started 20 years ago to now a decline in the amount of people going into the fields?
There's not an increase. I know, that's a fact. It's either close to the same or less, for sure.
Okay. Well, that's all right that it's close to the same. I would have thought less, but um it's hard for you to find people, right? Are you always hiring?
No, it's hard to find people for sure. Especially, it's even to find people that want to really do the work as well, not just finding the people.
And part of the thing that you like about your job is that, and this is because you have a t-shirt that says death before cubicles, is that you like that you're somewhere different every day. You're doing a different job, finding out a different problem, coming to a different result. You see different people on every different job site. You're making these friends everywhere you go. You're having these conversations with people about life, about what's going on in the world. And I feel like that gives you such a better perspective than someone like me who spent 16 years sitting in a cubicle. I was only there because I took a civil service exam, and that's where, that's how the government works. And that's where it placed me when there was an opening and they reached my score on the test. You're just sitting there every day. Nothing can really get done because lots of contracts and whatever are in the way. So, how do you, I mean, you like that aspect of your job, right? I assume most people would.
Yeah, no, that's one of the best parts of it is, like you said, going to different places. I'm somewhere different every day. I have pretty good friends now. I'm 20 years in at most every site that I've taken care of for, many years. So yeah, every, couple months you get to go see those people, say hi, see how they're doing. I like to travel around. Oh, you get to, drive through great countryside and see things every morning. Early in the mornings, you're going to a job site, and some days aren't great. Some days maybe it's outside on the roof and it's raining, or it's 0 degrees with a -15 wind chill, and you're on the roof. But you've got to counter that with the satisfaction that somebody's in trouble, basically, or is in a bad situation that you're there to fix. And yeah, you might put yourself through some stuff, but it's rewarding when you get done and everything is working, everybody's happy, and you go home kind of as a fulfilled day, even though it might have been bad conditions. And you just get through it.
Yeah, I think that's lost on this generation for sure. We just have everything so easily handed to us that knowing it's kind of like growing your own food, once you start actually and even just making dinner, and you have this sort of like, sure, maybe it wasn't fun doing it at the time, but this sort of fulfillment to it once it's done, and there's a satisfaction to it. I think that's, in my opinion, not my medical expert, degree or anything like that, but my opinion, that's what a lot of the depression and anxiety and that sort of stuff is based off of, people not having any sort of fulfillment in what they do. And they're, they could, it's just a lot, we're too lazy to get up and do it. So I really wish that, I wish more kids knew that jobs like this were achievable, were attainable, were needed, and don't take these 4 or 6 year degrees to get, $200,000 in debt later.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier. I went to college. It ended up being for 4 years because didn't know what I wanted to do at first. It was going to be a 2-year thing, and I worked throughout the entire time I was in college. By the time I got out, luckily I had saved and I was able to just pay my college off the day that the bill came. But I remember seeing the write up, basically the paperwork for it of what it would cost if I was to finance, and they laid it out for me. It was incredible. It was like a $50 a month payment, but the payments lasted for 40 years. It was unbelievable. The interest, I think, was double or triple what the
Yeah,
cost was.
and the problem with, and I'll just say the education system, is that most kids don't ever see that written out. And for the same thing with just taking out a loan or a credit card. Nobody ever looks at it written out like that. You might look at your monthly statement, but when that's not compound over 5, 10, 20, 40 years, and when you actually look at how much money you're wasting, that's a huge part of what I want to teach our kids is finances. I mean, who knows if the dollar will still be around when, they're ready to
Yeah.
graduate, but
We might have to learn the new
it's so
system
important
first.
to teach them that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what are your thoughts on like the Bitcoin and what's the other one?
Don't even know. I know a lot of people, places that I go to work, there's guys that always tell me about it, and you should get into it. This, that. I haven't looked into it enough to know. It just seems to me like it's out there. It's something different. So the government's going to try to get their hands on it if they haven't already. I don't know. Everybody swears it's a separate thing, but if it is, I don't think it will be for long. I think cash is cash. Cash is king, they say.
Yeah, or we'll be trading in gold or bottles of liquor with people. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, nice shirt, by the way. We both have our shirts on for the podcast today. Be the role model, your government fears. And I was going to say too, when you take your long drives to and from work every day, it gives you some time to listen to the podcast. So, I thank you for being that one listener that I have. No, but you do listen, which is very supportive. Thank you.
Monday
um,
mornings.
how, there you go. Thank you. How have you seen the trades change in the last 20 years? As far as like, I know when I met you, your company was like a small kind of intimate place to work. It's now more corporate. I assume the technology has changed. I know you've talked about how like working on a vehicle years ago was working on a vehicle, and now it is like doing computer work. And now you have companies with like ESG scores and funding things where you have to be wearing your mask if they tell you to wear your mask, that sort of stuff. How have you seen it change over the 20 years?
Yeah, it's technology for sure. I mean, it's just like working on cars. When I used to go to a job site, you walked in with hand tools and refrigeration gauges, and you would go see what's going on. Now, probably 95% of the sites, you walk in with your laptop and you hook up to the equipment somehow, and then you figure out what tools you need to go get out of the van to fix what it is. So it's very, very big technology wise. Most of my sites I can sit, right at the house and log into a site, check it all out, change parameter, and almost fix things sometimes from the house.
Wow,
That's
that is
actually one of the
amazing.
new pushes from coming. Things that are coming is, as far as my business is, they want to look into doing a lot more of that remote stuff, to save some of the travel time.
Well, yeah, and they're pushing you all to have electric vehicles at some point too, right?
They talk that, but I don't think it will ever.
So, okay, that is something I wanted to get in with you because you do have a good way of explaining these things. Well, no, I should say sometimes you talk to me like I already know half the story and I'm like, "Whoa, you got to rewind that." But you know what you're talking about. So, dumb it down as easily as possible. If I came up to you tomorrow and said, "Chris, I want an electric vehicle." What would you tell me?
Well, I mean, I'd tell you you're crazy. I'd have,
But
in a
why?
reasonable way, I'd have to ask you why you want one and what's your reasoning. But crazy because of my thoughts, it's not green. It's a big smoke and mirror thing because your power's coming from somewhere and there's not enough power coming from solar panels. And even if it is coming from solar panels are terrible for the environment. If you look at how they're made and how they're dealt with after the fact. It's just not good. Now with regulation and the EPA and stuff, as far as burning coal and nuclear power plants or something like that, it's almost impossible for you to have anything bad in the air unless you're burning it over in a country that doesn't have the regulations we have, which is why everything's so expensive to do in the United States. So, but yeah, electric cars, they're not practical. They're not cost effective. They're not good for the environment.
So you had said to me once, an electric car has probably 6 or 7 batteries in it compared to the one battery that our gas powered vehicle has. Is that still true?
Yeah, some of them they're making with just one big battery. So like basically the entire floor of the car is a battery.
Okay. So what's in the battery? Like they must have to get that stuff that makes it work from somewhere. Where is that?
Yeah, well, again, it's coming from the ground. So somebody's got to mine that, just like they used to mine coal, whether it be cobalt,
What is it
lithium,
though?
mostly cobalt or lithium.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's what's in our cell phones too. And I mean, it's no secret. It's just not really publicized that they're mining for cobalt. They're making children and, they're basically slave labor, mining for cobalt in different places of, I believe Africa. There's a few other places, but
well,
nobody
they
seems to
have to
care about that.
do it in different areas because you can't do it here. Well, because there's supposedly not a lot of it here, but also because the regulations wouldn't allow it to be profitable for them to do it here.
Okay. So break that down for me. What does that mean?
Well, again, regulations. So the size of the equipment, uh, big, huge diesel loaders and dump trucks and excavators, all this monster equipment it takes to dig this stuff out of the ground and then process it to get it to a point where it's usable for a battery. Plus, to pay the labor to do it. In other countries, they don't have to pay a huge minimum wage or healthcare and all. It's not needed. So it's way more beneficial and profitable to do that elsewhere and ship it over here.
Okay, so in a nutshell, they're taking excavators and big diesel equipment and using that to mine for something to force all of us to use, which would be an electric battery for an electric vehicle
Yeah,
that
which is
needed
now
the diesel in the first place.
and then when that car fails on you, the battery fails, it's going to cost you probably over $10,000 to change your battery.
Okay. So I have this big battery in my car. I need to charge it like how often? Like if I'm I'm in New York, we're in New York here. If we're driving to Florida, how far is my electric car going to get me before I
Well,
need to charge it again?
that depends on the time of year and everything because remember, everything is using the battery, right? So if you have your air conditioner on or if you have your heat on, wipers going, headlights on, all that's drawn off that battery, so that affects your mileage. Is it cold out? That's going to really affect your mileage. Batteries don't like cold. If you
Okay.
watch there's guys out there online that will show you the differences. They take videos of them with vehicles that are electric, and they'll start them up in the morning when it's cold. They'll put a trailer on a truck and see what that gets. And yeah, you watch your mileage drop dramatically.
Okay. So say I got to the next state, I'd have to sit there and wait now for my battery to charge, like at a charging station before I can go again.
Yeah, and hopefully they got a fast charger. Otherwise, you'll be waiting a while for a regular charger. But you're going to pay more for the fast charger.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're paying for that like we would pay for gas. So we're really not probably saving too much there. Where is the energy coming from to charge my battery while I'm waiting at a Sunoco gas station in, Philadelphia?
Well, it all depends on the states or wherever you are's infrastructure. Most likely, it's not coming from. I mean, you might get a 5%, maybe 5% of that power coming from solar panels. The rest of it's going to come from traditional means of power source. So a regular coal power plant is usually where it's coming from.
Okay. So there's a facility somewhere burning coal to bring the electricity to the Sunoco to bring it to my car battery. But we did all of this to eliminate the coal power plant bringing the gasoline to the Sunoco instead?
Yeah, so it's all because your car emits, supposedly emits, carbon, bad carbon for the air. if you dig into that a little bit with all the EPA regulations on your cars, so every time you get your car inspected, it has a sniffer put in the tailpipe to make sure it's not emitting past EPA's allowed amount. So if that's all being done and we have that emissions under control and we're not emitting all that bad stuff into the air, then does it really make sense?
Okay, so all right, you lost me again. You start talking about like smart stuff, and you got to dumb it down for me. All right, so they put the sniffer in our tailpipe. Oh my God. All right, and that's gonna say, and that's of my electric vehicle or the
That's
gas
in a
one. It doesn't matter
gas
either.
powered. There's no exhaust on an electric
Gas
car.
powered what?
That's why it's so fancy and green because there's no exhaust pipe.
Okay, so you're taking the exhaust from the car. And with the electric vehicle, you're just putting the exhaust basically at the facility that's burning the coal to get the energy to the charging station.
Yep,
Is
I
that
got it.
correct?
Yep.
All right. So this is our government. This is how our government works. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. And then to mandate this stuff on people, like school buses are supposed to be going green. I mean, you, how is that even possible?
Well,
And another good point that you brought up about the electric vehicles before is if say your company makes you have an electric vehicle, who's to say that we have the ability to charge that at our house every day?
we don't. It's not if we do, we
Okay.
don't.
So what's the answer there? I mean,
I don't, without getting too into it. So we have a 200 amp service at our house. So we are basically allowed to use 200 amps of power at the house, but our panel box is just about full. So one regular electric car charger is about 60 amps, which means we would have to up our panel size. So the next panel size up is a 400 amp panel, which is almost unheard of up until recently in residential. And to do that, you have to basically fill out all kinds of forms to your power company. They have to audit your house, your area, your basically your town, wherever, all the way back to wherever your power comes from. Because it's such a possible draw on the grid, that if you do it, and then your neighbor does it, and then your other neighbor does it, well, all the feeds from your closest power station are not sized to do that. So now all that would have to get upgraded. All your power lines, all your transformers have to get upgraded from that power station. Now you do that to all the houses. Well, guess what? That power station now is not longer, going to be able to support all that. So now the entire power station has to get upgraded. And then just work it back and back and back from there until you get to wherever it's produced from.
and I'm guessing that our governors and our congressmen and presidents, all of them probably have a hand in whose buddy can, benefit and profit off of this. And it's all backdoor deals, pushing this stuff.
I can give you a real example in New York. Recently, right, we've been all told that we're not going to be able to have gas-powered appliances in our houses because gas is bad. Governor Hochul right now is doing a project at a facility that I work at where they are doing basically it's a project where they burn natural gas in a turbine and the turbine produces electricity. So they're in a project right now that they are running bigger gas lines to the facility because it's going to use so much to produce electricity to sell to all the surrounding buildings that are produced through this turbine.
Okay, what's the point of it? Why can't you just take the natural gas and produce the electricity with that?
That's what they're doing. The turbine will burn natural gas to produce electricity. So they're looking at as a green thing. They're going to get everybody on more electric. So we need to get and produce electricity somehow. Oh,
right, but you're saying it's coming from natural gas anyway, right?
Hush, hush, yes. So the
they're
most common,
just saying, they're telling us, yeah, go ahead.
It's green. That's what they're telling you. So if I was to tell you you've got electricity coming from a natural gas turbine, would you know anything of that?
No, of course not.
Right. So, but now you look behind it, and that natural gas turbine, they're running, as they're telling us we can't use gas, they're running I believe 12-inch or bigger gas line to this facility because it's going to burn so much of it to produce this electricity that they are now going to say, I will sell you my electricity for a certain amount of money, or
Or
put it
mandate
back,
it on us.
or right. Well, right, yes, have an electric car, and here's where your power's coming from while they're burning all kinds of gas, but you can't.
Okay, so in a nutshell, they're calling it green because there's a turbine involved. However, the turbine itself spinning is not actually creating the electricity. There is natural gas behind it that
So
is
the
basically
natural
emitting carbon.
the natural gas is used to turn the turbine. So that turbine turning is making power,
Isn't the
but to
whole
turn,
point?
right? It sounds so stupid when you start to get the background of it, I guess.
Or so could you take out the turbine and just get power from the natural gas?
Uh, no, no. That's how you convert into your power is that turbine. It's the turbine is spinning basically a generator that's creating the power. What they call green about it
So are they
is,
using the turbine? Okay, go ahead.
yeah, so the I guess they're green, the way they'll push the green idea of it. And again, I don't know how much you're going to understand of this, but there's byproducts. So the turbine, one of the byproducts is a lot of heat. So they'll use that heat to run other things. They'll put it into water to get some hot water for facilities. You can also take that byproduct of heat and actually create chilled water through another device and get some building cooling out of it as well. So it's efficient as far as doing that. But again, we're not allowed to burn gas. But for some reason they are.
Yeah. Okay, so are they're putting in the wind turbine in place of the coal? Would that be correct?
Well, that's just another form of creating electricity.
Okay. So
It's
is the
not a wind
coal
turbine.
itself bad or is it the natural gas?
Natural, well, again, what's in the name?
It's natural, so it's something from the ground. Does it emit carbon?
If you burn it and it's not burning correctly, yes. But if it's burning correctly,
Okay.
it's very, very, very minimal. So now when it burns in this turbine, it has to burn correctly, otherwise it will produce a lot of harmful stuff to the air.
Okay. So say they do all that. Is that better for the environment than using the natural gas to burn the coal to then give us electricity?
Well, you would burn one or the other. You would burn coal or you would burn natural gas. It's just two different
Oh, all
forms of
right.
fuel.
Well, I'm trying to see here which one like if maybe is it better for the environment the way that they're doing it. They're still using natural gas in both ways, which is what they don't want us to use in our cars, right? Is natural gas the same as gasoline?
No, natural gas is a gas. Gasoline is a liquid.
Oh, okay.
Both are a fuel.
So is it
And cars can run on
Okay.
natural gas. I have chillers with car engines that run on natural gas, which is another, it's another fun story is that a lot of times when it's cold, the places that have those have to shut them down because we don't produce enough gas anymore because of regulations. So if it's real cold below a certain temperature, those facilities have to shut down that equipment because they'll steal all the gas from the houses in the area, and then all the houses would have no heat.
Wow. All right. So it seems like there's just a big snowball effect with this stuff. But really, like at the end of the day, I mean, the whole carbon footprint and the global warming, I mean, this all kind of goes into the global warming thing that they're trying to push. Or, well, I should say they changed the name. It used to be global warming. Now they've changed it to climate change because, yes, climates always change. We've had climates changing for centuries and centuries and centuries. So that's also another thing that
Every day.
you do enjoy kind of talking about, right? Climates change every day. Is there going to be a kind of a catastrophic event because it's so hot out, or what's really going on behind that?
Say that again.
Like the whole Greta Thunberg, what's that little girl that like cries and it says, oh my gosh, you guys are ruining our planet because there's carbon emissions going on. You touched before on how we are so strict in the United States with our carbon emission regulations. And we are one of the best at producing low carbon emissions, which is why we have to get things like cobalt from other countries, because that's where they don't have any sort of regulations. They have child labor. They aren't paying out all this health insurance and good wages. So that's why we can get our cell phones for the price that we do. So there's a couple of things going on here, but are we in danger of, the Greta Thunberg crying, saying that we are all going to die, by the year I don't know what year she said, because of climate change?
No, no, I don't think that's possible. I mean, if you look at what is produced in America versus everywhere else, I maybe we're countering each other, but until everybody else is on the same regulations that we are, you're not going to see that. Um, but even that being said, if you look, they talk about rising water levels and everything. If you can go online and look at satellite views that have been there for 100 years, or maybe not satellite views, but there's been pictures of coastline that there's no change other than the tide rising and falling for 100 plus years. So it's amazing to hear all this. If you just look into it a little bit, again, why are all these very wealthy people and politicians, everybody buying so much property on the shorelines? If if it's all of a sudden going to be underwater, why would you do that? You're supposed to be smart with your money. That doesn't make any sense.
Very true. Yeah, climate is always changing, and you have cousins that work for NASA that you've talked about this with before too, and even they agreed. Yeah, that's always changing. I think I was
Yeah,
still
you can track it
uh
back with information that we have, and you can see that we've been through, warm winters for years and years, to all of a sudden getting very cold and a lot of snow, cool, rainy summers to hot, dry summers. I mean, it's a big, cyclical thing that happens over time.
but there is pollution. There is more pollution today. Would you agree to that than there was 100 years ago?
I mean, there's ways that it's produced, and I can't remember. There was a thing I listened to where there was a scientist that had showed that, thousands of years ago, there was actually a higher carbon footprint in the world than today. So I don't know that I couldn't recite it to tell you exact specifics, but it was pretty interesting to listen to, and if it was actually true and how that laid out. But again, all of our plants and trees live off the carbon, so there's got to be a balance there. Maybe it's we've cut too many trees. Maybe there's not enough people planting things in their yards. I mean, there's a lot of other things to do than mandate people to do things.
So true. I know what video you're talking about. It was, I think the High Wire had it on. It might have been elsewhere too, but they were speaking and there was a hearing, and whatever the guy was presenting, the other gentleman said, "Well, the reason you stopped at that date was
Yes,
because before that date the carbon footprint was higher." So
yes,
that's what they were discussing, if it's the same thing you're talking about.
yep, that's it.
Yeah, I'll try to find that one and put it on my page, because I know the High Wire had it on. It was pretty remarkable, but yeah, you're right. And I wonder what since we have like the pollution now, what it was being emitted back then. But yeah, the ecosystems are always probably changing too. And yeah, I'll plant some more trees. I mean, when it's funny because when you think about the people cutting down the trees to put up the 15-minute cities, like, and their solar panels, which is another reason that solar panels are terrible. They've cut just in our neighborhoods here. You always talk about, oh, I used to go riding over in that field. I used to ride over in that field or in those woods. They're all now filled with solar panels.
Correct. So now things aren't growing there. Whatever was there is gone. Yeah. Now
Yeah,
think
they've
of,
cut down.
you
And
know, they
and not only just go ahead.
I was just going to say, just an easy thought process. On a hot summer day, what's warmer when you're walking on grass, or you think a blacktop? So all your solar panels are, panels and panels, panels that are black to grab all that sunlight, creating a ton of heat.
Wow. That's so true. Jeez. They really got us going downhill fast. I mean, yeah, so you're not only too are you cutting down all the trees, but so they're not soaking in the carbon that they're telling us that we have too much of, but you're killing all of the wildlife and plant life and, the insects, that all the little ecosystems that are within those spaces. And there's a lot around here. I mean, we're in upstate New York, kind of out in the country, and there's so many solar panel farms now that I can't imagine across all of America how much they have destroyed, how many trees have been destroyed and bugs killed and all that just for these freaking solar panels. And they can't even be
You
recycled, right?
right, and you might not have had this when you were little, but I had many people when I was young growing up always telling me to talk to the plants, not to be crazy, but because that's what plants feed off of, is what we emit. So,
Very true. Well, I want to say too, when you were talking earlier about our panel, I've asked you over the years for a hot tub, and you've always told me we can't handle that on our breaker. So now I know that you were being truthful. You were not just feeding me lines. We
yeah,
can't have a hot
exactly.
tub. So all right, crushed my dream. All right. So where do you see the future going with school? You talk to a lot of people in the line of work that you are at in different places, a lot of old school guys. Where like where do you see the world, the generations that are graduating today, our children's generation that would be graduating in 15, 20 years? Where do you see this going?
Hmm. I don't know. That's a great question. It all depends on how these kids kind of are brought up and what, if they're subjected to the nonsense or if they are subjected to some logical thought process and reasoning. Everybody, as long as people have some reasoning skills and they have some common sense, none of this stuff will ever progress or happen. It's the kids that are easily brainwashed and just told a bunch of stuff and they just roll with it. That'd be the downfall. It's to get a lot more people to just open their eyes. A lot of it's just plain and out there, and they just don't understand or know how to figure it out.
Which there are people in your line of work who are like, not to make it a liberal or Republican kind of thing, but even that are so liberal that they like we're of the mindset that pretty much the whole government is out to kill us. And, like there are elite people out there that want to control the masses. And really, to now that I've been a couple years of this mindset, it's kind of like, well, of course there are. Like go to Walmart, look around. Like, do you think the elite want us exhaling this carbon that they think is going to kill them, if they really believe that? Or they don't want 9 billion people on the planet using resources that they want for themselves. They think much more of themselves than of all of us. But where was I going with this? So you work with some people, you're of the unions that are all the unions are Democrat. These people still can't see. Like they're like rah Biden. How do you think someone can be so wise on, things like HVAC and stuff, but still be like, no, Biden's our guy?
I don't. I have no idea. That makes no sense to me. Especially the guys that I know that are brilliant and I've learned a lot from and respect. Those are the ones that really make me wonder. Like I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Yeah. And it's weird too, because even, these are the people who a decade ago would have been like, we're living all natural, no vaccines, we want fresh foods and stuff like that. And it's kind of like the tables have somewhat turned where it's now, I don't know, people like me who I'm like, well, geez, I don't want to, start now that I'm researching things. Well, I'm going to look at what we're putting into our kids and what we're feeding them. And I don't know, it's just very strange how it went from like the earthy people are now the ones that are like, listen to everything the government says. They have your best interest at heart. It's really brainwashing is just really a very interesting thing.
Well, it's almost like the follow of the party because the parties have kind of switched over time as well.
Hmm. Yeah, the loyalty, it's bizarre. Now, all right. So to close up, as we our son's going to be going into first grade. We're homeschooling him. We have a daughter. Do you ever fear that he's going to miss out on stuff by not going to school?
No, he already does. I'm jealous of him. He does way more already than I ever had a chance to do when I was in school.
Well, what about things like dating girls or not that they can't, but you're just like now it's like mom's always there. Like, I don't know, maybe when he's older, mom won't always be there to like, supervise these play dates and stuff. But things like dances or I don't know, chess club. I suppose you can do all of that stuff without being in the school setting. And you really didn't do a whole lot of that stuff, did you?
Well, I mean, I can think of dances, if that's what you want to call them, that used to be held at the one of the local EMS facilities, and it wasn't part of the school. It was just I forget how it even was. It was like a community thing, and we went to that during the school year. I think they had one every once a month or something like that. And we'd go there, and it was a typical guys that stand on one side of the room and girls that stand on the other, and oh my God, somebody might dance, and you went home. I mean, to me,
Okay.
I
So,
don't know. I
yeah.
didn't think that was very important in my growing up, but
What about like the football games being, cheering your school on? Do you think that there's anything he'll be missing out on?
I mean, if he wants to play football, he can play football. I mean, here where we are, the football team was so small that they got rid of it for a little while, and they just had a Brunswick League, which is the local league, and then I think they're actually merged now, or they just everything's merged with a couple different schools. But I mean, there's ways he can play. I mean, he plays soccer now and does all that stuff through the town, and so
Yeah, I think as they get older, I mean, they can't play in New York with the school. I did hear that Tim Tebow was trying to pass a law to say that you cannot not let homeschoolers in to your school
right.
sports because most states you can. So that would be cool if that's what he wants to do. You were into sports younger and then got into the automotive stuff, and that's pretty much what you spent your spare time doing when you weren't working, right?
Yeah, and I started working at 15, and my work days, I would work after school. So most practices and stuff like that are all right after school. So I usually didn't really have time for it. But, I had the thought in my head that, I wanted to buy some stuff and I needed the money. So I'd rather do that.
Well, as someone that just left her job so that we can use your money to homeschool and live, I appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
Because I think most people would not be able to be live on one income. I mean, we technically haven't lived on one income yet. I just left today, I believe is my last day on like the books. I haven't been in the office in 2 years. I've been on a leave, but now I'm officially departed, pension not there. What we thought I was going to be making in our 60s, it's not there now. Health insurance, we got to figure out what to do, which is really just sick insurance, but you should still have it, God forbid. So we've got to scramble to see what your company will cover and how we get over there. But it is scary. But I don't think a lot of people would be able to do it if you went to a 4-year college, you're in a $200,000 in debt. By the time you're in your mid 20s, late 20s, you want to buy a house. I mean, so then you're like, they're giving out these mortgages for way more than anyone can ever really afford comfortably. So now you're upside down in your house. You're still paying off your student loans. If you got a car payment and some credit card bills, it's near impossible for people to live on one income anymore. I mean, I guess
Mhm.
to me, let me ask you this. What are the goals that you want for our children when they are 18 or 22 and they're kind of moving out into their own lives?
I mean, I want to make sure that they can do whatever they want to do, is really all it is. If they have something in their mind that they want to do, I want to make sure that whatever it is, that they are able to do that.
Barring it's like an OnlyFans page. Do you know what that is?
I didn't hear you.
I said barring it's like an OnlyFans page.
I don't. I think we're losing internet.
No, I think it's your internet.
Try.
Yes,
You're fine now. Try.
barring our daughter does not want to be like on an OnlyFans page.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a whole different. Yeah, no, that's not one of the options. But
Yeah, I think like so I was in just this job that it literally was just you spend your life sitting here and you're like kind of programmed to count the days away to your retirement. You're in a job that you actually enjoy doing, you get fulfillment of. I've never heard you complain about it. I mean, there might be like this happened on a job today, you complain about that little tiny thing that happened, but overall, you do not complain about going to work. You enjoy going to work. You get up every morning and work out. You eat right. You take your vitamins. You drink a gallon of water a day and you come home and play with the kids. It's like people don't have this sort of fulfillment in their life anymore. So I think, a common thing that you seem to kind of that I've noticed when guys in your line of work in your company are leaving the company, they all come to you and kind of say this like, I really don't want you to be disappointed in me. I really didn't want to let you down. And I don't think they do that to everybody. I think that people look up to you because they see there's like an air about you that is you hold people to high standards because you hold yourself to high standards. But you also enjoy life and have fun doing what you're doing. You don't wait for 5 o'clock to come or for the weekend to come to enjoy life. You enjoy your workouts, you enjoy your career, you enjoy your kids. And I really think that is something that's what I want for our kids. Honestly, that would be my goal for them.
yeah, every day should be fun. There should be no reason that you can't have a good day. Now, there's going to be things throughout the days sometimes, like you said, but overall, it should be a good day.
Yeah. And hard work is just part of that.
Yeah, I mean, work is work. It's got to get done no matter what. So why not make it fun?
Yeah. Which is why I had to leave the government
Well,
job I had. It was
well,
just bringing
do
you
you
down.
remember? Do you remember? I can remember almost every single Sunday was this long drawn out thing where you would just complain that it's Sunday night and you have to go to work the next morning. It was like listening to myself when I used to have to go to school the next morning. You just dreaded it. Every Sunday night was just
Yeah,
you dreaded it. And I work in all the buildings and with
and I
all the
would
people that
drink.
you used to
I would
work with.
Yeah. And I would drink I would drink more on Sunday nights
Yep.
because I hated the thought of going to work the next day. Now, I haven't drank in the last 5 months, and before that, I had cut alcohol out for a year and a half, and then obviously, like, when I was pregnant and stuff, and you haven't drank in a while either, which is also something thank you for bringing it up because I did wanna talk about I reached out to, Bravis. It's a non-alcoholic brewing company, and we drink their stuff all the time. We both like the dark beers, but you kind of got to a point too where you're like, why would I have a beer if I can just have a non-alcoholic beer that tastes the same? Because I got my workout tomorrow. I don't want my body functioning less than efficient. So we both have kind of just not for any real reason. Like it's not like anything happened. It was just like, all right, well, let's switch over, drink this non-alcoholic stuff and just kind of be healthier. But yes, drinking, I would drink because I didn't want to go to work the next day. It was like a way to numb that depression.
And do you remember me telling you all the time? Because I work in all those buildings and I work with state built, a ton of state buildings. I see how they operate. I see what's going on there, and you'd complain all the time, and I would tell you every time, quit, leave. There's no reason to be there. Go to some other place. But you would, I forget what you told me, something about the golden handcuffs or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, you couldn't just leave the state. It's amazing that I just quit. I mean, like I can't even believe it. I can't believe it. Like you
But
don't. Like
again, but
you're
that
ingrained every day. You're getting a pension. You're getting a pension.
right. But again, from me on the outside, it made no sense. Like I couldn't stand sometimes working in the buildings as an outside contractor just to see the nonsense, the waste of time, the waste of money. It's just incredible. Then I'm like, no, I would leave instantly. I don't care what it was. I'd find something else to either make the same or more or whatever. No way.
Yeah, I definitely don't want either of our kids being government workers. That is for sure. Just the bureaucracy around it. You're only doing things because somebody's golf buddy had a contract, owns that business. So that's why the contract is written. It
Yep.
just like the stuff we were speaking about earlier with the carbon and the wind turbines. It's just that they're just pushing it for an agenda. It's not for any real. I mean, I worked with the
There's
welfare,
it's
food
all
stamps, all that sort of
incentives.
stuff, Medicaid. Yeah. None of it is there to help the people. It might help someone briefly. The overall goal, it's the carrot that they dangle before they take that rope and tie your hands behind your back with it, which is being a government worker is a glorified welfare recipient. You come here every day at the same time, you sit here, you do what we tell you, don't speak your mind, don't make any changes that make sense, just be a robot and then we'll let you free until tomorrow. It's it's crazy that I'm out, but I'm so glad. And I hope I can, urge other people if you're not happy, find something that makes you happy. And I think that yeah,
Yeah,
having that as a goal for our kids, to find something that makes you happy.
it's way more worth it to be I don't know how people go miserable to work every day. You spend way too much of your life, at least I do, way too much of my life working to ever be unhappy. That's crazy to me.
Well, I mean, if you don't know any different, that's just all you think
Right.
there
Oh yeah.
is, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Chris, it's been over an hour. Your parents have our children, and I'm sure they are itching to get rid of them. No, I'm kidding. But we do have to pick them up at some time. So thank you for being such a wealth of knowledge. I hope that parents listening can maybe have their kids that might want to get into that line of work, the HVAC or anything in the trades. Maybe they could listen to this and kind of urge them to go. Maybe I'll even give them your email address. You can be a mentor. So reach out to me if there's any questions to get your kids into the trades. Anything else you want to add? I know, I know that you love being in front of the spotlight.
I do. It's the best. It's the best. I've got nothing,
Thanks
nothing
for
for
being a
you.
fan of the show. Well, thank you for the last year and a half of kind of supporting me with the podcast. Not only just being the listener I have, the one listener, no, but you watch the kids while I record. You just support me as far as whatever I getting the computer and the little gadgets and stuff, taking the time for me to figure all this stuff out. So that means a lot. Thank you very much. I love you. Our
All right.
kids are very lucky to have you as their dad.
You're welcome, and I love you. And it's good to listen because again, I do listen to shows, and it's a very good topic. And obviously, just listening to some of the other people, and then some of the emails or whatever it is that you kind of fill me in on or read to me. Obviously, a lot of other people are getting a lot of benefit from it. That's again, and you're happy to do it. You're happy doing it. So it's a whole different mindset, which is cool to see.
Thanks. Yeah, the pay is a little different, gotta say, but it's way
That's
more
true.
fun, and I think it's got a good future. So
Yeah.
it's got a good
Yeah.
future.
I'd
All
rather
right.
support
Thank
something where you're
you.
happy. So, all right.
Bye bye.